Hi everyone, this is Abel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a bunch of really cool SFF books. There's going to be previews, reading updates, reviews. This is going to be great. Let's get ready. Let's start with Hammerfall by Rob J. Heiss. This is a standalone epic fantasy slash dark fantasy story inspired by Northern mythology. And this is a pretty unique thing because this is part of a shared universe of novels and stories that the author is working on. Because if you know him and if you don't know him, you should absolutely go and check it out. He released last year the first volume of 3 different series inside the same universe, which is the God Eater saga, God Eater's universe series saga. He released a full novel, which is a chunker. It's on my wish list. I haven't read it, but I will absolutely check it out. And 2, I think they're between short novels and novellas. So released 3 novels, but there are 3 number ones in that series. And that's incredibly interesting for me because they're also set in different point of the timeline of the same series. So he's able to tackle the main narrative, which is the chunker, the novel, but also to go back in time to have different prequels of the story. They're all released at the same time. That's pretty unique. I like when indie authors take this chance to do something really different with the structure of their stories. And I think that each of those first novels in the series, they can be read in whatever kind of order you prefer. And the same goes with this one, which is a standalone novel that can be read independently from the rest. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit of the synopsis, what we have on Amazon. I don't know if this character is featured in the main chunker of the novel or in the novellas and short stories that were already published in this Goat Eater series, but this has been publicized as an entry point to this series, so I think you can actually read this one without knowing anything else about the rest of the series. Okay, so we have this protagonist who she's a legendary warrior who just retired, and she's living this peaceful life with her daughter. Her daughter is very well beloved. She's the love of her life, and she just wants this really simple life living with her. But of course, we wouldn't have a story without something really dramatic happening. And it looks like we have this Earth-like shakeups when fire monsters are invading the land, and you see one on the back of the cover, and she has to struggle and finally deciding to go back to the fight. The cover is absolutely amazing. It is epic, it is bombastic, and it is quite different from the art style of the rest of the series. I'll put you here a nice graphic to give you a direction of the rest of the series, which is pretty stylized, really elegant. And I love that. And I love this one too. And in a way, they kind of complement each other. They sit very well on the same underlying universe and series. Really curious. I will probably start with this one because it's in that nice spot. You know, it's around the 350 pages. It's not a huge commitment page-wise and time-wise, but I am of course attracted by the main entry, the chunker of a book that we have in that 3 number ones book entries in this saga. I don't know when the rest of this year will be released. I think pretty soon because Heiss is a pretty prolific author. And again, if you haven't read anything by him, go and absolutely check it out. I'll let you know what I think about this one as soon as I finish reading it. The first 2 books in a really cool series, really interesting, with amazing covers by Jeff Browns, of course. The first one is Flames of Gold, and the second one is Echoes of Silver. The first one is already out, and the second one I think will be released in December. These are both, of course, by the author Delton. And it looks really fast, really interesting, really dramatic. We have this retired apprentice. She was able to wield supernatural powers. She quit her apprenticeship and we don't know exactly why. I absolutely want to know why, because I think there is a huge part of the inner workings of her motivations for what is going to happen during the story. Until she doesn't practice anymore, until her very good friend, who's a prince, called her for help because he lost his father and because he's on the run now. So they have to team up and they have to investigate what's going on. Again, by judging by the cover, which is a thing that should absolutely go for, especially when it's about epic fantasy stories, because they have this uncanny ability, these kind of artworks to capture the essence of the story. Yeah, this is going to be really fast-paced and really interesting and really fun. And at the end of the description on Amazon says that this is a series full of hopeful determination, featuring a ragtag cast of dwarves, dragonettes, dryads, with twisty politics and myths. This is everything I'm asking for from high epic fantasy stories. I'm going to absolutely check it out, and I'll let you know what I think about it. The Myths of the Northern Lands. We have 2 books out by author Amanda Sloothaak. Yeah, let's start with the butchering and name and surnames today. So the first one is Firefox and the second one is Ice Wolves, and I'm not sure if this is a duology or we should expect more. It has a very simple premise. We have this Scandinavian inspired world which is being struggling because they're being invaded by a southern kingdom. They call it the Red Lion Kingdom, I think, Empire. And she's training, basically, to fight against this invasion because they will lost everything, of course, if she doesn't do. I like the fact that the description is in first person. We don't have a usual synopsis when they basically break up on characters and settings and the main inciting incidents. We really have the main character telling you, I am a healer, I am an apprentice, I have to fight because we're being invaded, and if I'm not good enough, if I don't do enough, we'll lose everything. And I quite like it. It's quite original. I don't think I have ever read a book description like this one, and I don't know if we have some kind of internal monologue in the story with this exact kind of words. I don't think so. I think this has been tailored exactly for the description. And it says that this Northern Land series is in a world inspired by Scandinavia, the Viking Ages, Norse mythology, and where myths come alive and find a new meaning. Love that. And of course, it is about the fact that peace between the 7 clans of this northern kingdom will be tested. The edges between allies and foes will blur, and once again, the northern lands will find themselves in the realm of wars. And the fact that the protagonist is a healer, it is also pretty unique because I don't know how much of a fighter she will be during the story, how much she will learn, or if she's just training to become a better healer. But it is a different kind of point of view. We don't have the overpowered hero here, nor the usual coming of age story when the farm boy or farm girl will train to become a hero, or the noble woman who's imbued with politics and backstabbing and all the rest. The fact that she's a healer and that hopefully we'll see her abilities and her expertise used in the story, it sets it apart from many other stories that I have read. And I've read quite a lot, of course. So yeah, my interest is piqued. And I'll let you know what I think about the story as soon as I finish reading it. If you have read anything from this author of these stories, let me know. A series by author Julius Athens. And this is pretty difficult to summarize because the description is kind of lyrics, a little bit hermetic, you know. You have to interpret what's going on there. And we have 3 books in the series, and I think it's a complete trilogy. The first one is Fall of Sin, the second one is In This Twilight, and the third one is God of the Machine. We have this really interesting description, especially about the first book, that says that there's this distant future, a post-apocalyptic world with a legendary warrior called Morten X, who's a warrior and a leader, but it's also frowned upon and vilified because of his skin. And I don't know if we're talking about the color of his skin or about some kind of illness that makes it repulsive because of what happened and people fear him, but at the same time they follow him. There's a war going on in this world, of course, because they're fighting against a tyrant that's called Sin. So there's something symbolic going on, which is quite on the nose by the description, but there's a mystery there, because it says that as more than X is waging wars against this tyrant, they have to face the fact that when they will finally meet him and confront this tyrant, they will discover the origin and the true nature of this tyrant, and there's doubt about it. So yeah, because it also says in the description that actually this tyrant, Sin, is the creator of Moten X. So there's a lot going on here, okay, and a lot of mysteries to discover. So I quite like post-apocalyptic setting, but I prefer when that setting is used to enhance character development and character relationships, because it's such a youth setting. It's so common, and we have seen so many movies, especially with that kind of aesthetic that can feel a little bit sterile, you know. And when a setting is so very much developed and so used with that kind of aesthetic, it can become kind of a crutch, because authors, they know that we know what it implies on a sociological level and what kind of aesthetics we should need to expect. It can become kind of an excuse to do the bare minimum to explain the world, and I expect this to be different, because it looks like the author has been doing his homework to make this world pretty compelling and really well done, especially because in the end of the description he says that the story's been tailored for people who love Frank Herbert, N.K. Jemisin, and Dan Simmons. I don't need to explain you who these people are, but I know that you envisioned the kind of story that they delivered. So if this one managed to stay on par, even just a little bit, to the greatness of those authors that were so well beloved for their characters and the world building, we're going to have something really special here. I can wait to give it a try. If you have read this, let me know what you think about it. The Gryphon King by Sara Omer. I have heard about this story last year when I was compiling a video about all the releases of 2025, and this one was mentioned. The author mentioned when I made this call to arms on Twitter. I don't remember if I managed to put this in that video. If I didn't, you have it right now. The book was released a couple of months ago during the summer, and it sounds really, really interesting. It has this South Asian aesthetics with legendary warriors, jinns, and harpies, and lethal warriors. And it has a strange dynamic, strange and interesting. We have this conqueror that when he was a child, he killed this Gryphon. He became the leader of his country and a conqueror, actually. So he just goes around conquering all the lands around his kingdom, and he lays his eyes on another kingdom when we have the other protagonist, I think the other point of view, who's a female warrior. I think she's a princess. She's part of this legendary cast of warriors. She has this incredible supernatural abilities, and they have to fight because it says that she's ready to fight against this leader and conqueror. She's not afraid, but the problem is there is this strange dynamics at court with the rest of the royal court. Doesn't look like a safe place. So the central conflict is between them, but then they are forced to join forces, and forgive the awful choice of word here, to fight against a different threat, a supernatural threat. So they despise each other personally, on a personal level. They have pressing political things that enhance this kind of discomfort and hatred that they feel for each other, and they have this huge looming threat that forces them to work together. There is a mention at the end of the fact that the feelings they have for each other could change, so we can have a smidge of enemies to lovers here. I don't know. It doesn't look like this is being marketed as romantasy. Actually, it looks like epic fantasy, dark fantasy of that, with this huge Asian, South Asian inspired setting. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine with romantasy. I don't think this one is that. But there could be a hint of a underlying romantic subtext, which I quite enjoy, especially if it is well done. And this is the first one of a trilogy. So if there's a romance here, it will be a slow burn. I don't think they will end up smooching in the first book, okay? But I could be completely wrong. If you have read this, let me know what you think about it. I'm going to check it out and let you know what I think about it. And now 2 things from author C.M. Debell. The first one is a standalone novel. The second one is a collection of short stories set in the same world. And from what I can tell in the description of Amazon, we have an upcoming other novel, which is also a standalone, but it is set many years from the main standalone novel in this world. And I have to say, I love when authors take this kind of risk. Designing a complete new world, a secondary world, but deciding not to go through the usual straight course of a trilogy, a quartet, of an entire series, but deciding to focus in maybe more of self-contained stories and decided to jump around in the timeline to reveal and weaponizing the absence of information about certain characters and plot point in the lore of the world. I think it's really, really interesting. So let's focus on the main entry here, which is the Many Shades of Night. And I have to say that the way the world is introduced is also pretty unique. Because the story is not, by what we say in the description, immediately about the main character, but it is about this substance, this metal, which is called Aesir, at least I pronounce it that way, and from the main mineral that you have to dig up from the ground to refine and produce this Aesir. And I don't remember. Aesirium is the name of the main substance. So this Aesir metal is really sought after. It's really unique, really resistant, but it is also managed by a confederation, a syndicate of merchants, and probably politicking and scheming, because it has incredible properties. So by this kind of description, by the introduction of description of the book, you'll see that there is a very heavy focus on the world building. So this confederation and this syndicate also have kind of a shady reputation, and when the main character is introduced in the description, it says that he is an exile and something happened in his past, which is connected to that metal and the syndicate, and he is recalled to the on court. The king calls him back because there's this sickness spreading around in the main country, and it looks like there is some kind of connection between this sickness and the metal. It probably has healing properties or not. And by discovering the origins of this metal and that Aesirium, they discover some kind of a connection really deeply buried under the layers of knowledge and lore in this world. It's an interesting concept. And also, even if it is not particularly unique, because, you know, when you have a story that revolves around some kind of material, spice, drug, we have seen many very well developed, very well thought out story using that as a tool for the story. Even if many stories have used this, I don't think it is an overused structure for a story. Actually, I think we will need more, because by using it as a tool and as a frame to explore the world building, it opens up a lot of possibilities to understand and kind of investigate personal motivations, uh, the past and the lore of the place and the way it influences and intertwines with personal developments, and actually how it basically drives the story and sets the stage for the main inner struggle of the story. So my interest is piqued again. I'm really curious to see how this setting is actually used to push the story forward, and how it influences the characters, the motivations, desires, and fears. So, color me intrigued. Also, this kind of structure is also really interesting. The fact that we have a main entry and then a collection of stories and then an upcoming novel who's a prequel. Yeah, 100% in. I want to taste it. I want to try. If you have read this, let me know what you think about it. Okay, let's do reading updates real quick. I am enjoying very much, and it is very different from what I expected, but in a good way, Ludik and the Runaway Mountain by John Ilho, and I really enjoyed the voice of the author in this one, because there's this underlying sardonic humor, but it is not heavy-handed, it's not hand-fisted, and it is difficult to insert moments of levity in a story that it is quite dramatic, because just by reading the prologue you see how not the prologue, the first bunch of chapters, because actually the prologue is kind of disconnected from the main story, at least at the beginning. I have no doubt that the novel will answer a lot of the questions that we ask ourselves by reading the prologue, especially how those two very different settings and very different set of characters are connected. But as I was saying, by reading the beginning of the novel, you see that John has this ability to tell a very personal, very unique story, because the protagonist is in a personal position that sets him apart from the world and gives him a very unique perspective. And the interaction that he has with the rest of the cast are unique because of how peculiar he is as a person. And at the same time, being so dramatic and so difficult of a story, having those moments when you cannot stop yourself by cackling and say, yeah, that was funny. I think it's a huge feat. It's a huge challenge. And I haven't read many novels that were able to inject that kind of really subtle, not exactly humor, but the moments of levity, let's call it, because I don't think they're meant to make you laugh out loud, okay? But just to make you smirk a little bit and say, yeah, that was a nice turning of words. That was a nice way to describe a specific situation. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I wish I could dedicate more time to that one specifically, but I hope I will be able to finish it pretty soon, because I want to absolutely review it before the end of the year and see what place it gets, because we'll have awards from my channel again in 2025. And then I am reading Last Among Equals by Peter J. Aldin. This one surprised me because of this, the way the pacing is organized inside of the story. The author was able to give me a very good look at the protagonist and the main struggle and the gist of the setup in the first chapter, and then developing it fairly quickly by going on in a very fast way, but also really effective. I expected this to be much slower, but it isn't. It goes fast without missing a bit. You never have the feeling that, oh, come on, this is going too fast. I'm missing something. We should stop a little bit to analyze this, to savor this one. No, it goes fast and it is endearing. And there's a lot of things going on right at the beginning because of the description of the protagonist, the relationship with the other main character in the story, the way they're, why we have such a breakneck pacing at the beginning, the very difficult situation they're put in, and a lot of the world building and the inner workings of the many layers of supernatural abilities that the character have, and at the same time the very very old lore and the way the past influences the present. As I told you, there's a lot going on, but it never feels like it is poorly organized. On the contrary, it feels very well communicated and delivered to us as readers. Honestly, I'm jealous. I think there's a lot going on here and a lot to learn as readers and as an author myself from this novel. I'm eager to go on and to know more about the story. And finally, also The Severing Son by Vaughn Roycroft. And man, this one is special. This one is special because the writing style is so compelling. It's so deep and so atmospheric. Because it managed, by reading the first bunch of chapters, to make me feel uneasy and really on the edge of my seat, and at the same time incredibly fascinated by the characters and this world and these settings, the way they speak, the way they interact, this underlying feeling of mysteries and impending doom, and at the same time people who are actually pretty clearly underestimating the magnitude of the menace that they have to face, and at the same time there's this mysteries about what's going to happen and the coming of this savior, and a lot of skepticism about it. I'll say that the first chapter, the prologue and first chapter, they have a steep learning curve, because you ask yourself many times, wait a minute, who's this? And why is he talking? Who's this one? Because the author, he pushes you in the story, and it is told in a way almost like you're supposed to know who you're talking about, who these people are, what kind of relationship they have, and what kind of position do they have in the sociological scale and organization of this place. But you don't have enough information to understand why they talk each other the way they talk each other, why they treat each other the way they treat each other. So there is an element of let's try to swim and survive to understand this world, which is maybe a little bit too much there. But at the same time, it sounds so fascinating. It is so elegantly written. The prose is so it flows so well that you shrug it off. Okay, I'm not understanding, but I want to understand. And I think that this is a big accomplishment, because as far as I can tell, this is the first novel that Vaughn ever published. If I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. If it is the first novel, it's even much more of an accomplishment. This is pretty extraordinary. So yeah, I hope I'll be able to finish it pretty soon and I'll give you a full review. And if you have read any of these books that I'm reading right now, let me know what you think about those. And now a quick review for Fugitive Prince by Janny Wurts. I'll say this is quick because I have a whole live stream of my channel, more than 1 hour, with a bunch of beautiful and really smart and amazing people, other booktubers and readers and authors. So if you go on the live tab, you have the live discussion about Fugitive Prince there. And I think that it makes for an incredible entry in the worlds of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurts. This is strange in this structure because if you have seen my other reviews, if you know anything about this series, it is a very long series, but it is also organized in arcs inside. So we had an ending by reading the last book, the third book in this series, which depending of the version you have, it could be the second or the third. UK is 3 books, the first arc. The US is 2 books, but this one is Fugitive Prince. It's organized And by reading the prologue, you understand that to set up another micro conflict inside the macro conflict of the whole story. And if you know anything about it, you know we have those two brothers that are fighting. One is wielder of light, another is wielder of shadow, and there's this huge complicated world building with a lot of story, thousands of years of civilization upon civilization, and the struggle, which is endearing, not endearing, it's really interesting and compelling, but also heartbreaking between those two brothers that had the chance for a brief moment to reconcile themselves, because they have this huge story of conflict between them and their families, but they don't get to have that. They become mortal enemies, and they could not be more different. They're actually light and shadow, light and darkness in themselves, but they're also really layered and really compelling. This story set up another huge conflict inside that other huge conflict, and it gives you a lot of information about the creation of the world, the main conflict, and the inner workings and mechanism of how the power politics really work. So this story has always been really layered and really compelling on the world building side and on the politics side. But this takes it on another level. That makes it so compelling and so deep and so very well developed that by reading it you'll be in awe, saying, man, this is different, this is special. And we see more of the world, more of the cities, more of the characters, and more of other characters that we spent a little bit of time in the other books that here have much more screen time, much more of a page count space inside the book. And even if you love them or you didn't love them, the way they're handled here, it will make them so much more fascinating. And this is incredible. This is one thing that Janny does really well. She puts the seeds of those characters in early stages of the story, and then she decides to bring them on the forefront of the story, not in a way to overshadow the actual protagonist of the story, but the more you read the series, the more you understand that it can be a large ensemble of characters all interacting and having a meaningful place in the plot and the development of the overarching story. So you expect it to have a large cast of characters, which is not to the point to becoming, overwhelming. Too many perspectives, too many places, too many things to account for. No, it is always very elegant and streamlined, told in a way, but the language and the atmosphere and the added layers of the story, it makes it really complex, but never in a way that sounds too much, too heavy. So yeah, the end is is incredible. The last 200 pages are so mind-bendy and heavy hitting that you ask yourself, how does she does that? How it is possible that she's making the stakes too higher, and the drama more deeper, and the stakes so incredibly dire every time. This is the fourth book. Many people say this is their favorite book in the entire series, and I can actually see why. But yeah, man, I am reading the subsequent installation of the story, and if possible, I'm enjoying it very much, even much more. So yeah, I'm reading this one slow. I have too many things going on. I was supposed to have it finished by now, but alas, I wasn't able to. But I will give you a full review discussion about the other book too. But for this one, Fugitive Prince, 5 stars, incredible. If you haven't read The Wars of Light and Shadow, go and do it right now. Do yourself a favor and you'll thank me later. Quick updates about my writing. I have I am in the middle of the translation of the second book of the SUNRISE DAGGER, the second book in the Memories of Kenji series. I am enjoying the process a lot. It is quite difficult because this is much of it's a more complex book. It's deeper, it's more, a little bit darker, it's more complex, there's more points of views, and there is a lot of things going on. But I have the added experience of successfully finishing and the translation of the first volume and then actually delivering the book and selling it, and people seems to be enjoying it. I like the fact that we have more than 70 ratings and reviews combined on Goodreads. Thank you so much. We have around 35 on Amazon, and this is actually a call to action. If you have read the books, if you still haven't had the chance to review it, and I know that we have a lot of things going on, and maybe we'll forget, maybe we have too many things going on, but please go on and review my books on Goodreads, and if you can do it on Amazon too, even better, because we really need that. All indie authors, we need that kind of validation, the kind of street cred, we call it, that the reviews give us. And thank you so much if you have already reviewed the book. Thank you so much. I am grateful to you so much more than I can actually articulate by words, okay? And I am happy to say that the audiobook for the first one, for the Crimson Fire, is actually in the early stages of development. And I cannot give you a timeline right here, but I will absolutely give it to you as soon as I'm ready. I also finished my translation for the Italian edition of The Way of Adan by Philip Chase, and I'm planning to release it pretty soon. It will be a nice feeling, but also a little bit dreadful, because I have been away from the Italian market for so many years that it looks like I'm starting over again, and it's a good thing. It's a fresh start, and maybe one day we'll republish my things in Italian too. Who knows? Maybe in the near future. Okay, I think this is all I've got for you today. Thank you for being here until the very end of the video. Remember that if you enjoy science fiction and fantasy books, this is the perfect place for you. So if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing, leave a like, share this video. You can also support the channel by checking out my own stories, Crimson Fire and the SUNRISE DAGGER. You have all the description down below, and if you want to see more videos like this by me, you have more videos like this by me right here, right now. Thank you again. Keep being awesome. I'll see you in the next one.